How do you advance a slide when you're only in view slide mode? Oh wait, let me just click on
Hey, Asia?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you
Pause
hear
the
me?
recording. Yeah, I can hear you. Pause the recording, though.
Oh yeah. All right. Good. Let me put the hands down. All right. We are about to get started. It's 9 o'clock on the dot. So for those of you who are here, why don't you guys put in the chat box where you're from, if you can chat, so we can see that and talk to us. Where you from? How do you feel about the exam? Massachusetts, all right. Kentucky, all right. I am actually at my mother-in-law's house here in New Hampshire, where it is currently -8 degrees.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. Jacksonville, Florida, I'm completely jealous because I'm sure that it's nice and warm down there. It's freezing. Awesome. We got Detroit. All right. Is it cold in Detroit? I bet it is. I bet it is.
It isn't. It's in the 50s. What?
Wow. That's much colder than I thought. Maybe the whole country is having this little cold spell. I haven't actually looked at the weather at all.
Yeah, it was 30s-ish today. It was like in the 20s, but it was enough so that my kids were like, "Can we go home and have hot chocolate?" I was like, "Yes, please."
Yeah, I came home and made hot chocolate, so I definitely understand. Okay. Well, I'm sure you guys are all anxious to get this going. Now, this webinar is designed for people who haven't passed, but do we have anybody in here who hasn't taken the exam yet at all, or is looking forward to it, is planning to take it in February, perhaps? Mm-hmm. Testing in Feb, all right. Awesome. Anybody on here who's taken the exam more than one time so far? Yeah, okay, yep. Got it. All right, cool. Well, you guys are in the right place. All right, so in tonight's presentation, we're going to talk about what I wish I knew about the ABA exam. My name is Asia Davis. I am the content manager here at Prepare to Pass. I help to make sure that all Anne's great content gets out to you guys, and that, you guys get the things that you need to really pass the exam. We've just finished. I was just talking to Anne, who uploaded a bunch of good stuff that we're going to be sharing with you guys over the next few weeks in 2018. So we're really geared and ready to making sure that you guys get what you need. And we're going to cover as much as we can tonight as possible to really make sure that you guys are on point. And yeah, so let's get this started. So our goal tonight, if you've never taken the exam before, even if you've taken it 20 times, hopefully no one's taken it 20 times, but if you've taken it more than once or a lot of times, that's okay. All right, if you feel like you're a nervous test taker, if you get those sweaty palms, if your heart starts to pound and race, and you just feel like even you get a little nauseous, that's okay. All right, and if you're feeling overwhelmed by the material, not sure where to start, just have too much going on in your mind, you're in the right place. All right, our goal is to make sure that all of that is taken care of. If we can't take care of all of it in tonight's webinar, we're going to explore some options to help you get there, but we're going to get as much as you can. Now, if you've been on any of our webinars before, you might see some stuff that you've seen before, but we've also got a bunch of new stuff for you. So make sure that you are paying attention. And we got something for you. If you stay until the end, all right, we're giving a seat in our upcoming 2-day exam review course away, all right, to a certain special somebody who follows directions at the end of this webinar, okay? So make sure you stay to the very, very end to make sure that you can enter for that spot, all right? We're going to be choosing them live on this webinar. All right, so you guys give this your full attention, okay? If you're anything like me, you might have a bunch of tabs open on your computer. You might have Facebook. I just turned off the notifications on my phone. Hopefully my phone listens to me. I've got people trying to Facebook message me. Turn it off, all right? Give this your full attention. You're here. It's cold everywhere, and it's right after the holidays or in the middle of the holidays, depending on what you're celebrating. So, if you got family in the background, close the door and give this your full attention. All right. So, I want you to make us a promise. All right. I've spoken to a couple of people via Facebook, and what we're going to give you tonight can be absolutely life-changing, or especially in the way that you approach this exam. And, we were talking to somebody, I was talking to a couple people, one person who's taken an exam 6 times, and it's like, I feel like giving up. And Anne jumped right in, and it's like, don't ever give up. All right. So that's what I wanted to promise you, because you can do this. And Anne, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, why people can do this, even if you failed, even if you haven't taken the exam yet, or even if you've taken it, 5, 6, 7 times. Oh, did I lose Anne?
Yeah. Oh no, I'm here.
Okay.
I
didn't know if you wanted to say anything about that, because you usually have some great things to say.
Honestly, like I could say it the nice way, and I could say, you've already come so far, and this is just one relatively small point in the rest of your journey. It's not the beginning of your career. It's not the end of your career. This is one point in the middle. So, so it's, and it may be a hurdle, but, Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking to a girl about, she had asked, like, do you know any scientists with dyslexia? And he said, yeah. And he said, and it's a hurdle, but what do you do in the Olympics, what do they do when they come to a hurdle? They go over it. And they go over it and they keep running. It's not the end of the race when you hit the hurdle. So that's the nice way to say it, is like, don't give up, because you can overcome this. And the less nice way to say it is, giving up is a luxury that the lives that you would change cannot afford. The field cannot afford to lose people. So, if you're not going to do this like for yourself, then do this for the hundreds, thousands of people whose lives you're going to change. They're waiting for you to be able to do this, and you cannot let them down. I know most of us in human services are more compelled by the things that we do for other people than for ourselves. So remember that this isn't just for you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I see it every day. The need for what you guys are able to do is greater than you can imagine. And so literally, I'm one of those people. I'm not a behavior analyst, but I see it all the time, especially working with Anne. And what this science can do is, I believe, full-heartedly can change the world. And so you guys are at the forefront of this. So this is what we're here for, and make sure you can get it done. All right. So what makes this different? Well, we proudly support the Global Autism Project. If you've never heard of the Global Autism Project, this is going to blow your mind, right? You make sure you keep them on your radar. It is an international organization that trains teachers to work with kids with autism all over the world. And they need BCBAs to go and work in I think they have 10 partners right now in India, Kenya, China is a new one, Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic. They're doing Czech Republic. They've got inquiries from Spain, from Saudi Arabia, like all over the world. Indonesia, right? So if you're looking to travel, if you think that being a BCBA means like, oh, you're stuck where you are, no, it will absolutely open doors for you to get to impact people all over the world. And the Global Autism Project is something, is an organization that you can get involved in to make sure to do that. All right. And they have these 2-week trips called Skill Core, and absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I can't recommend that enough. This is also why you gotta pass the exam. All right. This is why we do this. All right. Anne, I'm going to introduce you. If you don't know her, you're an amazing teacher. She is a master therapist. She's got over 20 years of experience across the lifespan. She's a Liza Foundation Scholarship recipient, received supervision from Dr. Bobby Newman. She's the author of the Prepare to Pass study manual and Prepare to Pass courses, exam review courses. She is the most, I think, competent, and she's just able to really explain the concepts in a way that even somebody who hasn't studied all the things that you guys have studied understands them. So you guys are in a real treat to have her explain and show you guys what you need to do to pass the exam. And of course, she's an expert teacher. All right, so go to the next slide. There we go. Here we go. And I think I'm going to give the control over to you.
All righty.
Okay. And we'll just go from there.
Okay.
All right.
So, so I want to start off by saying I'm really strict about this. This is a no shame zone around here. Like we are, like I've heard from people who've struggled to pass the exam, some of whom are like approaching double digits in the number of times they've passed this exam, and then they've passed it. So this is a no shame zone, and we're going to leave all of that by the door because we're talking about, so first of all, you're not alone. A lot of people struggle with this exam, and I'm not talking about people who don't know the material. I'm talking about people who are really good at their jobs, did really well in their classes, and still struggle with it. So if that's you, you're not alone. And because I've talked to so many people like you. But also, if you're nervous about this exam, whether or not you've taken it before, you are also not alone because you're talking right now to someone who went through a lot of that. And I really struggled with overwhelm and test anxiety. So I can't see. There we go. Now, okay. Here we go. Back to this slide. Now I'm all confused with my screen. Now,
do you need the next slide?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So in the process of studying, I did a lot of things right. And I had a lot of luck, and I had developed a lot of strategies. It wasn't something that came up for me suddenly when I was studying for the BCBA exam that I was a nervous test taker. It was something I've always struggled with. So I had a lot of tactics going in, and I had a lot of support from people who knew how to give me other tactics going in. So I had a lot going for me, and I did a lot of things right. But for me, developing those tactics was a matter of sink or swim. Like I could either figure things out and be able to do well on tests, or I could not figure things out and the test would never reflect what I could really do. So for me, it was a survival thing. It was sink or swim. And if I was going to be swimming, I had to figure out how to do that. So I also did a lot of things wrong, and I wasted a lot of precious time on stuff that was increasing my test anxiety and my overthinking and was not serving me in terms of my preparation for the test. So after doing this for a while, I discovered a strategy for studying. I developed a task analysis for what was working and alternatives for what was not. I discovered the best way to integrate the science and apply it to the exam.
Yep.
And also, I figured out what.
Oh, sorry. I think I hear the little beep. I think if you can tap on your screen somewhere else, maybe that will let you, or press the arrows. Just
Got it.
select the
So, and I
should.
figured out, okay, so I figured out how to develop real fluency and ace the exam. So I figured this out the hard way, and you get to do it the easy way. So you get to cheat a little. Not cheat, really. We're using cheat as a euphemism, but you get to benefit from my experience and save yourselves a heck of a lot of time. So the hard way was spending hours trying to memorize this really technical vocabulary and cramming the information by force and trying to over answer the questions on the test and end up, in many cases, getting them wrong. Because I wasn't just looking at what the question was actually answering or actually asking and giving them the answers that they wanted. So you guys want the easy way that I've used with students to properly prepare for the exam? So in the past 5 years, I've helped hundreds of students pass, and they didn't kill themselves studying. Now, I have to warn you that I can teach you to do this the easy way, but I cannot do it for you. So you still have to do it. I've heard rumors that people think I'm telling them not to study. I don't know where that came from. I'm telling you to study more efficiently in a way that doesn't feel like studying. That doesn't feel like cramming stuff into your head by force, but you still have to do the work. So the 3 secrets that we're going to talk about tonight are: secret number 1, knowing the content is only half the battle. Secret number 2 is the BACB is not out to get you. I know that sounds a little flippant, but a lot of what I hear from people, particularly those people who are retaking the test, has to do kind of with that idea. And secret number 3, studying more does not necessarily mean you'll pass. That's not necessarily the ticket to passing. So let's talk about secret number 1. Knowing the content is only half the battle. So these are the pass rates for the past couple of years. We haven't yet updated them to this for all of 2017, but this is, I should tell you, pretty much where the pass rates have hovered since they started publishing them, which is, gosh, like at least 15 years. So the BCBA pass rates have hovered somewhere in between the 50 to 70% mark. Mostly 60 to 70, like 67 is kind of where that tends to be the level. For people retaking the exam, it's a bit lower, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. But the BCBA, they've always hovered there, including when the exam was taken by people who were like, oh, well, I've written 3 textbooks on this subject and I've been a professor of it for 20 years. Why don't I just take this exam? And still the pass rates were 67%. So, so this is where the test hovers. Now, obviously, since the certification has kind of become more established, we don't have people who have been professors for 20 years taking the exam anymore, but we still have 100% of the people 100% of the people who take the test have met a mastery criterion for the material. They have to have passed their coursework. They have to have completed supervision. So what's with the test pass rates being so much lower than the percentage of people who have met a mastery criterion? So that's weird, right? How is this possible that 100% of people have already met a mastery criterion for it, and yet 67% pass it? So I want to take a second and talk about what the exam is really, because there's a lot of miscommunication about that, a lot of kind of urban legend about it, and I sort of want to address a little bit of what you can expect from the exam. The exam is not preparation for your career. That's not what it's for. Because of the exam being kind of the last point in getting certification, it does feel that way. It feels like, you know, this is going to be preparation for your career. What they're doing is assessing your knowledge base to make sure that the certification itself is meaningful. If people have the certification without it being meaningful, then that's that's a big problem. So it's an assessment of the knowledge you've already gained. It's not preparation for what comes after. The exam is not a consultation or a discussion of your experience. So this is a problem that people get into, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. Sometimes people will read especially the scenarios on the exam, and they'll start to think about what they would do in that situation. And sometimes the questions are even phrased as, what would you do first? Or you decide to such and such. But the exam questions are not asking for your clinical opinion. They're asking for an example. So one of the ways that people start down the road of overthinking is to think about it saying like, well, what would I do in this situation? Let me come up with a treatment plan instead of answering a multiple choice question. Or, well, I remember I knew this one kid who would do such and such, instead of answering the question based on the material that everyone else taking the exam has, not this one kid that you know. The exam is also not the same for everyone. So a lot of people sometimes will ask me, or I've been asked often, will this be on the exam? And I say, you know, it's really hard for me to say with any level of authority what's going to be on your exam. There is a pool of about 1,000 to 2,000 questions. And everyone taking the exam gets 150, which will be scored toward your scaled score. Another 10 are being tested out for future test administrations, and you're not going to know which ones, so they'll be hidden in there. And they're hoping that if they have this large pool of questions and they give you a sample, they will give you enough of a representative sample that they can tell that you have the required knowledge. But what that means is that the person sitting next to you in the testing center may have a completely different exam than you have. So I remember when I took the exam, I didn't have a single question on standard acceleration charts. And I actually was really comfortable with them, so I was a little disappointed that I didn't have any questions on standard acceleration charts. I met someone who took the exam in the same geographic area, in the same testing window, and she had 7 questions about standard acceleration charts. So it's very hard to predict what's going to be on your exam. What the exam is a multiple choice test, which means the answer is right there. So it's sitting right in front of you. It can't be anything other than the answer selections in front of you. So also this means there's only one right answer. So a lot of people will say, well, we'll have a sample question. Someone say, well, why wasn't it this thing that's not in the answer selections? I'm like, well, your number one reason, that's not one of the choices. So as snarky as that sounds, it's very important that you understand this is a multiple choice test, and the only thing it can be is the answers in front of you. It's also important to remember that the exam is questions that will ask for one piece of information. So, and I talk during our exam prep about what I call the grab an umbrella technique. So I usually describe the study process as like a closet. right? So your brain is like a closet. And I remember very much the experience of feeling like I was stuffing things in an overstuffed closet. Like every time I sat down to study, I'd be like, what's that concept? What's that article? What's that vocabulary term? And I'd try and shove it into my closet, like force it in there. And then when I finished studying, when I closed my computer, I put away the books, I would say, okay, so what do I know about behavior analysis? And I couldn't think of anything. So it was like stuffing things in a closet, but then when you open the closet to look for something, you have no idea where it is, right? So you've got a lot of stuff in there, but you can't find any of it when you're looking for it. Does that experience resonate with any of you guys? You feel that way in your study process? Yeah. Okay. It's a pretty it's pretty common, and that sort of tells you that you might be kind of going into more test anxiety or more overthinking. And what I really needed was to go into my closet and start organizing, so that I could find the stuff that I was looking for. And I really needed to embrace the simplicity of the science and get to a place where I could walk into the closet and know what I was looking for. So the other way that I use this metaphor is what I call the grab an umbrella technique. So each question is going to ask you for one piece of information. So you go into your closet looking for an umbrella. Don't go into your closet looking for an umbrella and walk out with an umbrella, a hat, a coat, a pair of shoes, an extra jacket, and another purse. Like, don't do that. You went in there for an umbrella. Grab the umbrella, get out. So each question is going to ask you for one piece of information. You have to give them that, and that's it. So often it's not about knowing the answer. It's about understanding the question. So, and this, sometimes it's as simple as, I've talked to people who are preparing for the exam, and I don't know if any of you have ever felt this way, but she said, the question was, what's the most important thing? And I knew that it was A, but B was really important too. And I said, well, the question says, what's the most important thing, not list all the important things. And then when I said it, she was like, oh, right, yes. But it's really easy to fall into that trap. People also fall into this trap when they start to think about what their recommendations are, rather than what the question is about, what the question is asking for. Which of these is an example of what you would do probably refers to something more specific than, oh, I'm going to develop a whole treatment plan and put it out there. So it's about understanding what the question's asking and understanding the difference between answering a multiple choice question and answering an essay question. Now, here's something interesting. Sometimes the better clinician you are, the more challenging you may find the exam. So that's a little maddening, right? Like, why would that be? You're supposed to give me this exam so I can be a good clinician. And it's the way the exam is formatted, what they're kind of forced to do if they're going to look at whether or not you have this knowledge base. Unfortunately, sometimes the way that you would answer a question as a clinician is going to be different than the way you answer a multiple choice question. Clinicians are used to looking at situations and thinking more holistically. We take in every single possible outcome. We look at all the possible variables. A multiple choice question is practice in thinking in a more narrow way. We're thinking about this with the information printed in us. We're not, looking into any conclusions. We're not saying, what if this happens? What if that happens? We're looking only at what is printed here. And that skill can sometimes conflict with the bigger picture thinking that makes somebody a really good clinician. Okay, so secret number 2. The BACB is in fact not out to get you. It's frustrating, and especially people who are retaking the exam, one of the hardest things to do is sort of shed that frustration and anger and bitterness. And I get it. I've talked to so many people who struggled with this exam, and it is really frustrating. And it's heartbreaking to see people kind of go further with their careers and feel stuck. It's awful. But the BACB is not out to get you. So people do have expressed to me like it feels harder retaking the exam. And certainly the pass rates for people who are retaking the exam are lower, which is kind of curious. You would think with practice effects, they'd be more comfortable with the exam and they just kind of sail through it the second time. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So these are actual theories that people have proposed. Some people think the BACB gives a harder version of the test to those who are retaking. They don't. It's the same 1,000 to 2,000 questions, and it's a matter of luck which 150 will be scored. That's all there is. Other people, do they know if it's a retake? No. I mean, like the BACB on some level does, because they obviously they have to kind of give you a new exam date, but they don't gear the test that way. And so they certainly have no kind of ill will toward people who are retaking the exam. No one will ever know. Once you pass the exam, no one will ever know. Okay, so we have a question here. Let's see. Oh, I lost the question.
Let's see if I can get it.
Okay. Let's see. So do they know if it's a real take? So it's a random thing and everyone's just given a test. Yep, everyone's given 150 questions, then they try it another 10. It's completely random. And they're hoping that by making it completely random, they'll just give you a representative sample of the questions and know that you know a good amount, right? So other people think, oh, well, I didn't study enough or I didn't go in depth enough. So people will talk about how they want to go more in depth with the material. You already have a master's degree and you've already taken graduate level material. Going in depth is unlikely to help you at this point. So really, the best thing to do is to develop more fluency and get in touch with the simplicity of the science rather than going more in depth. So rather than reading everything that B.F. Skinner ever wrote, instead you should be getting in touch with getting real fluency with the science. Now, fluency means that you know it to the point where it can only be one thing. Someone asks me my social security number, I rattle it right off. I'm fluent in that information. Somebody asks me my mother's maiden name, I rattle it right off, and I'm fluent with that information, right? That's why they're security questions, because you're never going to get that wrong. So you want to get to that point with the material on the test where it's just, of course, I know that answer. It's just, that's the only thing that it could be. You don't necessarily do that by going more in depth with the material. You do it by practicing the material that you already have. People will also say, oh, well, you didn't study enough hours. I've heard about people studying 40 hours a week, 70 hours a week was the number that I heard, in addition to working, which I thought, like, what, where, when? like I'm a working mom. I can't imagine spending 70 hours a week studying. And I got to tell you, if I had that amount of time, I'd be using it to sleep. Like, it's like kind of, and also, I don't know what you would be doing with those 70 hours. If you need that much time, you're not studying efficiently. So studying efficiently is better than studying more. A lot of people will say there was no right answer on their questions. And that there is one. They have all been tested. There is a right answer, and it's right in front of you. And some people will say, well, people fail the test because they failed the test before. Now, I have a particular bugaboo about the idea of you failed the test because you failed the test before, because it's not particularly behavior analytic. Saying that you failed the test because you've taken the test before it's circular reasoning, and we're going to get into that in a couple of slides. So let me see. Oh, I need the next slide. Where is it? Let's see. Okay. All right, but what makes the test hard? These are things that particularly plague people who are retaking the exam. One is overthinking. So people who retake the exam tend to second guess their answers more than people who are taking it for the first time, because now they're worried about how they would have answered it last time, and is that the same as they're answering it this time? Looking for conspiracies rather than answers. So people will say, oh, that's too easy. That's what they want me to say. Well, maybe they want you to say that because it's the right answer. So they look for ways that the BACB is trying to trick them instead of looking for the correct answer. Also, people who retake the exam tend to struggle more with test anxiety because they have a history with this exam. So these are the things that legitimately do make it harder to go into the exam as someone who's had this experience before. But hard is not the same as impossible. These really do make it harder, but all of these things are things that can be addressed. So in other words, the BACB doesn't make the test hard. Your experience of the test makes it hard. It is, if you feel like the subsequent times you've taken the test have been harder, that's real and that's legitimate. But it was not the BACB doing that. It's your learning history, it's your experience with the test. And I don't want to diminish that, but I do want to say that we're really in luck. If you were taking the CPA exam and that was your problem, there wouldn't be a whole lot that you could do to help yourself. This is the science of how organisms learn, and the science of how organisms learn new things when the old things aren't working. So something based on learning history, we're uniquely suited to be able to address that. So, and I said I have a bugaboo about the idea of like failing because you failed before. Come on, that's circular reasoning. And there are a lot of other classic behaviorism fails. I'm sure some of you have used these. And after tonight, I want you to promise me you'll never use them again. So I'm a bad test taker, or I stink at memorizing, or I'm not good with multiple choice. I've heard every one of these. Do not let mentalistic explanations get in the way of passing an exam on behavior analysis. Those are all mentalistic explanations. So I stink at memorizing. It's not about memorizing, or it shouldn't be about memorizing. It's not about quoting CooperHeward. It's about applying the concepts they're describing. So that's what you're going to need to do on the exam. If you're memorizing without having a level of intimacy with the material, then that's not real fluency. So it shouldn't be about memorizing. It should be about applying the science. Also, there is no such thing as a bad test taker. So bad test taker is a mentalistic explanation for what's going on, right? So we would never say, if you had a kid who was struggling with, say, color identification, would you say, oh, he's just like a really bad color identifier, I guess we're just going to completely give up on having him identify colors, like forget it? But people do that when they're talking about themselves and this exam. So you would not say, oh, he's a bad color identifier. You would teach the skills involved in color identification. And you can do the same with test taking. There are test taking skills that you can learn, and then you become what people call a good test taker. But in reality, there's no such thing. There are skill deficits and skill repertoires. And if you have a skill deficit, you'll learn the skill. It's that simple. So thinking about being a bad test taker, instead think about learning the skills you need to be successful. So here, I touched on this a little bit earlier. The BCBA exam pass rates and pass rates for exams in other fields have opposite trends. So my sister's a CPA, and what she was told when she was taking her certification exams was nobody passes all sections of the exam their first time, which means the number of people who pass the first time is so low, it approaches statistical insignificance. So, but you are expected to pass it at some point. So the expectation is retaking the exam is something that you're going to do, and you're more likely to pass it as you retake it. So as people who are interested in learning, we should be really curious about this. So what does this mean for you? That means, what it says to me is that there's something going on with and again, everybody who sits for this exam has met a mastery criteria already. That's why you have to wait so long to get your test date. They have to like look over everything. You've met a mastery criteria already. So if it's not about being qualified to take the exam in the first place, and it's not about knowing what's on the exam, then what does it mean? Often, it means that there's something in your process of studying that is standing in your way. So doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is one definition of insanity. You do the same old thing, you get the same old results. So I see a lot of this, but I see actually people doing even more of what they did the first time. So people will say, well, I'm going to study for the exam. I'm going to reread CooperHeward and Heward. So they reread CooperHeward and Heward, and they don't pass the exam. They say, oh, okay, well now I'm going to reread Cooper and Heward twice. And they don't pass. And they say, okay, well last time I only got 6 hours of sleep a night. So this time I'm going to reread CooperHeward and Heward 3 times, and I'm only going to get 4 hours of sleep a night. So not only do they do the same thing over and over again, but they do more of it. And you know what? Suffering is not necessary. You do not get a prize for suffering the most on your way to the BCBA. So losing sleep, making yourself ill, this is not going to be more likely to help you pass. In fact, it's probably going to stand in the way of passing. Which brings us to secret number 3. Secret number 3 is that studying more does not mean you will pass. So most people prepare for the exam like this. They study all the vocabulary. So they memorize large chunks from CooperHeward and Heward, and they can quote page numbers to you. And they spend hours and hours and hours trying to memorize complex vocabulary in its academic phrasing. They study example after example after example. They reread textbooks. People will talk to me all the time about, they'll say, how should I prepare? Should I reread CooperHeward and Heward? And I say, oh, please don't. The truth is CooperHeward and Heward is an amazing resource. I love it. I still have my first edition, even though I also have the second edition. That's how much I love it. But it is a textbook. It is meant to be slowly digested over a couple of semesters. Just like, say, an entire pizza is meant to be eaten by a large number of people or over a large period of time. If you were to take an entire pizza and say, I'm just going to eat this right now in 10 minutes, you would be very sick. If you try to do the same with CooperHeward, you will also be very sick. So spending more hours cramming your heads full of all the information, cramming information in by force, this is how a lot of people prepare. But there is a much easier way. The fact is that practice doesn't always make perfect, but it does create fluency. So when we refer to practice effects, we're talking about the kinds of behavior increase that you see when you do something over and over and over again. So one of the things you need to do is stop bad habits. Most people use mock exams incorrectly. Mock exams are about practicing generalizable skills. They're not about churning out correct answers on this particular exam. So one way that people use mock exams and they're not using them well is they kind of memorize the exam and start to just churn out the right answers. That's not the way to use a mock exam. There is not a mock exam available by anyone that has the questions that you will see on the BCBA exam. It doesn't exist. If it did, we could lose our certification because that violates the professional and ethical code of conduct. So no mock exam is ever going to share an actual test question. So memorizing that test is not helpful. Mock exams also should not be about practicing your test anxiety. If you find yourself getting more and more anxious, if you find your muscles clenching and you're starting to feel nauseous and your palms are getting sweaty, you're practicing an anxiety response. That's not the way to use the mock exams. Test anxiety is a set of behaviors that are elicited by certain conditions. So again, we are in a really unique position to be able to address this. So I've talked to people and they've said, oh, I know I have test anxiety, but I know that's not real. And I was like, why would you say that's not real? And they say, well, because we're not supposed to, think about things that can't. And I said, are sweaty palms real? Are heart palpitations real? Like, it's real. You're having physiological responses that with the right equipment could be detected and measured and observed. So why would you think that's not real? Test anxiety is a set of behaviors. So, and we are in a unique position to be able to address them. One thing I always like to tell people on these webinars is comments do not count. It's really important to understand this. Comments will not change your score, but I want to go into a little detail as to why. So comments are, so in each question we'll have the opportunity to comment, and there's a lot of sort of urban legend about, oh, I know this guy who commented on every question and he passed the exam, and but here's what happens. So if there's a particular question from the pool of questions that they ask, and every single person who got it answered it incorrectly, then the psychometrician says, okay, there's something weird about that. Let me go back and see if I can figure out what. If she reads the question and still can't figure it out, then she'll go into the comments. If there is a problem with the question, that question will no longer be used to come up with a scale, with anybody's scaled score. The answer, everybody answered it wrong. That answer's still wrong. It's just not counted against their scaled score. So in all likelihood, your comment won't get read. Unless there's a problem with the question, no one's going to see it. It's only for the psychometrician. Also, your comments will not change what the right answer is. That question, you're still going to get that question wrong. And most important, The skills for a multiple choice test, when you just open that closet, you see your umbrella, you grab it and get out, are different from the skills in an essay test where you're thinking more holistically about all the possibilities. So another thing that tends to trip people up is definitions versus examples. A lot of people actually learn examples rather than definitions for a lot of the terminology. So we're going to go over a question. You're going to see how this can kind of stand in your way. Sammy is working on naming items by function. The teacher shows her a picture of an apple and says, "What do you eat?" Sammy responds, "Apple." Later, Sammy walks to the door in bare feet. She reaches into the box where her shoes are kept. Her mother asks, "What do you wear on your feet?" She responds, "Shoes." As she puts on her shoes, her mother makes conversation by asking, "What do you color with?" Sammy responds, "Crayons." So the question is, the response shoes would be considered a mand, tact, echoic, or intraverbal. Now, most people read this question and they say, it looks like they're all intraverbals because I learned that intraverbal is like answering a question. So she asks questions and then Sammy says, first she says apple and then she says shoes and then she says crayons. So it seems like an intraverbal. But the actual answer is mand. Because the definition of a mand is a verbal operant that is under the control of a motivating operation. So when Sammy goes to the door in bare feet and reaches into the box where the shoes are kept, those two things indicate that there is a motivating operation present. And therefore, shoes is controlled by that motivating operation. So one of the things that I like to do to avoid falling into the trap of replacing definitions with examples is I have a process for learning the vocabulary that is really helpful. So we start off with the definition, then a plain English translation of that definition, then we bring in an example, then we use what I call the whittle, where we whittle it down to 3 to 5 words, and then introduce a mnemonic. So I'm going to give you an example of how to use this with the vocabulary. So response generalization. So the definition is the learner performs responses beyond the learned response. So beyond the one in the original training conditions. In plain English, when the student has been taught to perform one response under the training conditions, they're able to perform other responses in similar conditions. So this is how response classes are formed. So an example, I like to use non-clinical examples because they're more generalizable and they demonstrate more generalization. So a non-clinical example would be opening a door. So you can open it with your left hand, you can open it with your right hand, or it's one of those lever doorknobs, you can open it with your elbow, and each response achieves the consequence of an open door. So that's an example of response generalization. So the whittle is behavior change stays, new responses. So a mnemonic is a response is a behavior plus generalization, where something changes but the behavior remains the same, equals response generalization. Okay, so I know it's getting late for people. So we do have a practice question I want to go over, and we're going to talk about another process that I've used that has been very helpful for people. So Susie is working on imitating simple actions. The instructor claps his hands saying, "Do this." Susie does not respond. The instructor moves Susie's hands to clap, then allows Susie to play with a small car for 30 seconds. The instructor claps again and states, "Do this." Susie does not respond. So in this case, so the question is, the opportunity to play with the car would be considered A, a stimulus, B, a reinforcer, C, both A and B, or D, neither A nor B. So now we're going to do the analysis of the question. This is what I call the ABCR technique. So the antecedent in this scenario is do this. The behavior is clapping. And the consequence is playing with the car. So once she got her hands clapping, once the instructor helped her to clap, then she was able to play with the car. The result of, or the relationship among the antecedent behavior and consequence was that there was no increase in behavior. So this analysis helps us to break the question into its components. So what are we looking for? So we want to figure out whether if this is a stimulus or a reinforcer. So the antecedent is do this, the behavior is clapping, the consequence is playing with the car, and the result is no increase in behavior. So let's go back to our definitions. So the definition of stimulus is any aspect of the environment that can be differentiated from other aspects of the environment. Okay. So the reinforcer, the definition of reinforcer is a stimulus which causes behavior to be increased when added, or the removal of a stimulus which causes an increase in behavior. Okay. So if we're going to figure out which one this is, we got to look at the results. So, so the result is no increase in behavior. So the answer is it's a stimulus. Now, allowing a student to play with a car is something that we do a lot in clinical settings, right? Those of us who worked with kids with autism, especially in discrete trial teaching, allowing a student to play with a car would be considered a reinforcer. It would be hoped that that would increase the behavior. But the definition of a reinforcer is that it does increase the behavior. In this case, it didn't. So it's only a stimulus. So the bottom line is making this the last time is about studying smarter, not harder. Using the science to change your habits around studying. Remember, the BACB wants you to pass. When I've talked to the psychometricians at the BACB and talked to them about the tests and stuff, they've said, thank you for helping people pass this exam. They want you to pass. Remember to look for answers and not conspiracies, and practice test-taking skills and use your off-the-book study time to look at the science in the world around you. So, so now I'm going to pass it back to Asia. You can take control back of your screen now.
Okay, thank you. All right, you guys. So we are coming around to the end of this, and before we get to the part where we're going to give away a seat in the class, I want to share with you a case study and some ways for you guys to take this further, especially for those of you who are taking this again, taking exam again, and for those of you especially who are testing on the next testing exam window. We've got something special for you. But first, I wanted to share a case study. All right, so this is Jenny, and maybe you guys can relate, right? Like, she used to spend hours studying, right? Got no sleep all the time. She was cranky and stressed, right? She just had a baby, and in addition to trying to get ready for this exam, taking care of an infant was definitely getting to her nerves. And she'd taken this exam and she failed, and she realized after her second attempt and still not passing that she wasn't doing something right. Like it takes a little something to make that realization, right? She admitted to herself that she must not be doing something right. And, so she spoke with Anne. She took one of our courses. She implemented these strategies, a lot of the strategies that Anne just shared with you tonight, and passed on the very next time. And Jenny is not an uncommon story, right? Like, we get this all the time. Like, just recently, sort of just a very short list of some of the people who recently took the exam, who used some of our materials and they passed. We have Roberto down there. You know, this was his second attempt and the first time using the Prepare to Pass resources, and he passed, right? So imagine yourself in these people's shoes, right? I understand, like, it's got to be so kind of heartbreaking and deflating and defeating, but you can do this. It is possible. It's just a matter of getting the right strategies in place so that you know how to approach this exam going in. And that's what this webinar is about, and that's what Prepare to Pass is all about, right? So what if there was a way to study without studying, right? Like, would you be interested? All right, I hope this is yes. All right, so type some yes in there. All right, so you're ready to hit the easy button. Like, we really are committed to making this the last time. Stop throwing your money away at the exam at the BACB. Like, they don't need it. Like, go to the movies instead, right? So that's why we're offering our 2-day exam review course. All right, and before I get to that, I want to talk to you about, you know, this past hour, right? Would you agree that it's been time well spent so far? Right. Now, obviously, we can't cover everything that you need in an hour masterclass. And even if we had all day, we couldn't cover every single thing you need to know. So that's why we put together this 2-day exam review. And we got a special offer so you can get everything you need to know. And if you act fast, you're going to get a very special deal. So what we've learned so far is having the right strategies is a key to success, to studying more efficiently, to being prepared for test day, for retaining the material, and of course, passing the exam, right? So would you like to have all the best strategies for passing this exam? If you want to have all the best strategies, type yes in your chat box, okay? Let us know. All right, yes, we want the strategies. Like, you guys know the material, you just need the strategies, that's it. All right, so I want to talk to you guys about disposable income, right? We all have it. We go to Starbucks, we spend money on movies, we spend money on going out to eat, to take out. I was at Starbucks today. It costs like $5 for tea at Starbucks these days. You're like, what? It's tea. It's literally leaves in a bag with some water. They charge you $5 for it. But because it's Starbucks, we don't really think about it, right? But what if you invested in yourself, right? Like, what if you took a little bit of that, the Starbucks, the movies, the going out, right? And instead put that towards investing yourself, in your career, in your future, in your family, all right? Now I want you to think about old habits. Now, most people will go to a training like this and maybe take away 1 or 2 things at most, right? And Anne covered a lot of stuff, right? She covered a lot of strategies, a lot of techniques to really, that literally you can implement, and it will definitely help you get to where you want to be, right? But most times, most people will just go back to the old habits and that kept them stuck in the first place, all right? So don't go back. Don't go back and think you got to go read the textbooks all over again. Don't go back to studying 18 hours a day. You don't have to do it. Okay? You're on this wheel. You don't have to do it. All right? We want to get you out of this crazy wheel. Now, who has our exam review worked for? First-time test takers, of course. All right? And we recommend this for first-time test takers, so you go in just basically knowing you're going to pass, right? And people who have taken the test many, many times, right? Oftentimes people come to our exam review and they've taken it several times, and the very next time they pass, right? And it's just a matter of reframing your mind and implementing the strategies to make sure you get over that finish line. The nervous test taker, right? So in addition to all the strategies that Anne has talked about tonight and many more, she also talks about how to really enter into test day so that you're not as nervous, so that you have the confidence to answer those questions, and so that you're not overthinking. So when making this exam review, we had 2 choices. Our first choice was we could go as cheap as possible and try to sell as many people as possible and you know, honestly, it wouldn't incentivize us to really stack the value and to make this valuable for you guys. Or a second option, which requires a little higher investment, but in exchange, we can devote more resources to guarantee your success. Okay, so here's Caitlin. Right, this was my 4th time taking the exam, but my 1st time using my materials, and I finally passed. Thank you so much for your amazing help. 4-time test taker, right? 1st time passer with the Prepare to Pass exam prep. All right, Paula, oh my God, I can't believe I passed. I'm a BCBA. Thank you so much to Ann Byrne and everyone at Prepare to Pass who helped this dream come true for me. Paula, ABA exam taker, now BCBA. All right, that's going to be you. All right, that's going to be you when you implement these techniques. All right, as Ann mentioned, you guys all have the minimum requirements necessary. You can do this. It's just about implementing the right strategies. All right, so what you're going to get when you on our 2-day exam review, all right, you get 12 hours of instruction, a supportive Facebook group. All right, and all of these are valued. 12 hours of instruction, $14.97. All right, supportive Facebook group, $2,997 value. Studies, tips, and strategies, $997 value. And the ability to have your questions answered by Ann in the moment. All right, if you're going to hire Ann on an hour-by-hour basis, one-on-one, she's very expensive. I forget how much she charges per hour. So you're going to get access to her for 12 straight hours. Okay. So total value, over $11,000. And if all this did was save you in another exam fee of $255 to $585, if those things add up, or save you hours of studying that you can't get back, all this did was jumpstart your career so that you could finally earn what you're worth, all right? And save yourself the jealousy of, you know, seeing your coworker don't, all right, while you're just kind of stuck still trying to follow this exam. If all this did was give you more time with your family, all right, would it be worth it? All right, so what's this exam worth to you? On weekend of your time, an extra $50 or more per hour, all right, that's an extra $96,000 a year once you have that certification. All right, so how much would you pay to get your BCBA certification once and for all? All right. So if you were to pass this exam, not only would that allow you to take your career to the next level, it would also relieve so much stress, right? And so you can see it's a good deal at $9.97. And for the general public on our website every day, you can go and you can get this program for $5.97. All right, but because you're here, right, because you're special, because you're stayed this long, because we believe in you, all right, we have a special deal where you can get started now for just $2.97. All right, you can click the button. I'll put this in the chat box, but you just go to prepare to pass, the aba.com/2-day special. And even if that's too much for you right now, we've got a payment plan option where you can split it up, all right, because we want you to succeed. All right, now you get 2 choices. Your first option is to do nothing, not take this leap of faith, which is 100% risk-free. Or your second option is to make a small investment compared to what you're going to get in return and just give it a shot, right? You could do that. Now, other exam reviews will have you studying for hours, cramming all the material. With this, you're going to get a proven system and strategies. All right, and I want to talk to you a tale of 2 people. I call her Jane. All right, so on the left, we have Happy Jane. Happy Jane is the one who decided, she put her foot down and she said, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I've got to pass this exam. I'm not giving up, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take this leap of faith, and I'm going to get the strategies and the help I need to make this time the last time. And she passed, and she's a BCBA, and she's earning more money, and she's helping all the people who need her help. And then there's Sad Jane. Sad Jane was too scared. Sad Jane was like, no, I'm just going to keep trying. No, I'm going to study harder. no, I'm gonna just stay in my funk and I'm gonna give up. Don't be sad, Jane. All right, the world does not need sad Janes. Be happy, Jane. All right, so go to preparetopassaba.com/2-day special and grab your seat. All right, you guys know, Prepare to Pass 2-day special. We'll put this in the comments in a second. All right, you know what you're going to get. 12 hours of instruction, Facebook group, studies, trips, and strategies, ability to have your questions answered in the moment by Anne. All right, big value. Now, if you haven't signed up immediately, right, maybe reason number one is the cost. All right, so that's why we split it up. Just do it. All right, reason number two, lack of faith that a simple approach will work. All right, we have been doing this for, I don't know how long now. This approach works. All you have to do is implement the strategies that Anne gives you, and what she gave you tonight was really just a small fraction of what she has up her sleeve, and you can do it. All right, and reason number three, not trusting yourself. All right, now if you can't trust yourself to pass the exam, I know, especially if you've tried so many times, it can be defeating, right? It can feel so sad, but trust in our ability to know that what Anne's going to teach you can get you through. All you have to do, if you can't trust in yourself, trust in our trust and faith that you can do it. Okay? So go to preparetopassaba.com/2-day special if you want. And Anne, it's right here, you know.
So I do just want to say, there's nothing that sets me apart from any one of you. I took the coursework just like you guys did. I did the supervised experience just like you. And I'm not great at dealing with overwhelm. Asia knows. But yes, you do know. I'm not great at dealing with overwhelm. I had a lot of test anxiety going in. I literally cried at my computer, and I don't mean I got sad. I mean, tears went down my face while I was studying. It was a very nerve-wracking experience for me, but I had a lot of things in my corner, and I still passed my first try, and I can help you pass. I was able to stop that stuff in its tracks and give myself what I needed to pass, and I would love to give that to you guys as well.
Awesome. Looks like we have a couple of questions. Says, yeah. I'm a first-time test taker, haven't even started to study. What materials do you have? I just did purchase a study manual. What else do you recommend?
We do have a mock exam also that goes over some of the test taking strategies and examples of how to use them. So because of how people use the mock exams really not very well, I was very resistant to writing one, but I did because I wanted people to be able to practice the strategy. So I believe we do also have a mock exam.
And also, depending on when you're taking your exam,
right.
I would say scholar sessions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right? Scholar sessions is good too.
Yeah.
Another question: do you use the Plan, Pass, and Prepare manual during the Plan, Prepare, Pass manual during the 2-day seminar? Well, I wanted to make sure that each of our products were different. I mean, of course, the material's kind of the same, and I wanted each of our products to stand alone, but also if you bought more than one thing, that you would kind of get a different thing from each product. So, a lot of the vocabulary is going to sound familiar, of course, but I do but the 2-day intensive really is its own thing. So,
but the study manual won't hurt.
Oh, no, not even close. Yeah, it won't hurt. It supplements very well. I'm not a person who brags about myself really comfortably, but I'm real proud of that study manual. And probably the thing I'm proudest of is that my husband, who's not a behavior analyst, the night that I got my copy, stayed up all night reading it. And I said, you know, I tell people who are actually taking this exam to get a good night's sleep. You know that, right? It was such a page turner. So I really did want something that was going to give you some comfort level with the science and not be excessively academic in its presentation. So, so when he stayed up all night, just like flipping through it, that I felt like, okay, mission accomplished. So it's definitely very helpful in terms of like it goes into the sort of the vocabulary process a bit more.
Awesome. Okay, great. I'm putting the link to Grab Your Spot in the chat. Let's see what you're gonna get. You guys know this, all right? You're gonna get a lot of stuff. And you know, if you're thinking about, there is an option when you go to the page to get the study manual as well at a pretty good discount when you do buy the 2-day exam review. So if you're thinking about that, I highly recommend just grabbing both, you know, especially if you want to have the kind of extra leg up on the exam. And the next sessions are on our website. And if you aren't taking the exam in February, we plan to have these before each testing period. So even if you aren't taking it until April or later on in the year, you can go ahead and get this great discounted rate now, and then take the 2-day when you're ready to take the exam. If you're planning to take it at any time in 2018, go ahead and grab your seat now, and we'll apply it towards any of the sessions that we do in 2018. Okay. Now, what you've all been waiting for, here's how we're going to do this. Okay. We're going to do the 2-day exam review giveaway. And so here's how it's going to work. Visit our Facebook page, all right, and leave a review about what you thought about this webinar, like super quick. And like, great webinar, loved it. If you didn't like it, let me know personally. Okay, that's totally fine. But on our Facebook wall, I want you to know what you thought, and we're going to pick a winner from those who left a review. Okay, so go to facebook.com/prepare to pass BCBA exam review. All right, go there, click on reviews, leave it. All right, let me see if I can exit out of here and find Facebook on my computer. All right, not even in the right place, but I'm getting there. Oh, computer. All right, so hope you guys are writing. If you can't find it, just leave a comment underneath the note. We have a post about this webinar on our page. Thought I was on the page, guess I'm not. All right, and I'm looking for the comments. Of course, my internet's gonna go slow, but that's okay.
Oh, they're flying in, Asia.
All right, good. Oh, yep, there we go. We've got them. All right. Denise, yes, we'll be taking it in February. You got it. Let's see. And do you see I usually have 2 computers for this part. I should have looked it up. Of course, everything's going super slow on me now. Bringing it up. All right. What else? Who else do we have? Reviews. Casey. Where am I seeing it? Why can't I see them? Oh, I see. I'm in the group. Hang on. I'm looking in
I was
the wrong
wondering why you
place.
weren't seeing
I
them.
gotta go on the page.
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
another thing. You can join our vocab study group also on Facebook. So hang out there and get some goodies.
yes. All right. We've got Ali. Awesome. Oh, I had all this set up earlier and I was like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. And now I can't. Oh, there we go. They're coming through now. All right. Susan, we got Laura. Awesome. All right. We're gonna give you guys a couple more minutes. And then I'm just gonna like close my eyes and scroll and pick one. And we got Fanny. All right. Very good. All right. We got 30 more seconds. You haven't left a review yet? Let us know. All right. I'm just gonna refresh my screen, make sure I got them all. Oh, there they are. They're all there. There we go. All right. There's so many, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being on this webinar. All right. Here I go. I'm scrolling, closing my eyes, up and down, up and down. And we've got Kaveni Glynn. It's our winner. Yay! Round of applause. Kaveni, I hope I'm saying your name right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. Shoot me a message. So Kaveni, what you're going to do is I'm going to message our assistant, but if you send an email to help@preparetopasstheaba.com, all right, again, help@preparetopasstheaba.com, right, or message us just through the Facebook page. And just be like, I won the spot in the 2-day. Let us know. We'll make sure to get you set up and let us know when you want to take it.
Yay!
Yay! All right, everybody. For those of you who didn't win, grab your seat. All right. Spaces are definitely filling up for the January session. So grab your spot soon. You will not see a price lower than this. So go to Prepare to Pass the ABA 2-day special. PrepareToPassTheABA.com 2-day special. Grab your spot, and we look forward to seeing you there.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone.
Everybody have a good night. And again, congratulations to our winner, Kaveni Glynn. All right. Have a good night.
Night, everybody.